I'm actually a new YouTuber. I've been on YouTube for a couple years now, posting pretty inconsistently. Channel, you'll find a lot of hauls, vlogs, travel, solo travel, just different stuff. I actually felt led to share this testimony on being 26 years old and not having any friends. I actually just watched another video last night of a YouTuber, a vlogger, and she was just talking about how she just doesn't have the capacity for any type of friendship outside of acquaintanceship or family anymore. And it's just really gotten me thinking. I did take a couple notes, so didn't want this video to be too structured, but wanted to share more so of what I've been going through the past 16 or 17 years of my life. And I know I've actually been meaning to film this video for a couple years now, actually, because I think Myra West is the name of like the first YouTuber who really put out her testimony, put out her experience, I think on being, was it like 20 or 21 with no friends, and her video, her reception blew up. That if you just look on YouTube, I feel like since the pandemic, there's been so many stories and testimonials and just experiences of people who have been sharing their testimony, this shared experience. So I'm going to share a little bit about my background. A young Black woman, I definitely do think isolation and not having friends could be added a unique layer to my particular experience of not really having friends as a grown woman. I grew up in a very diverse area, so Korean Americans, Indian Americans, Black people, white people, Hispanics. I grew up in a very diverse working class community. And so I had like a lot of little friends when I was like early in elementary school. Like I had relationships with my teachers. They just knew me because I was very boisterous and very vibrant when I was a young girl. So yeah, I had a lot of friends growing up, but this is like elementary age. So I would say between the ages of, I would say maybe 10 to 21, I actually struggled with making friends, building community. I was always the odd one out. I was picked on a lot as a young girl, as a teenager. People made fun of me. I was different. A few years later, my family and I moved to a developing community, and things changed. That there wasn't a lot of us out there, us, quote unquote, people of color. And I think that did add a little bit to the layer of being like easily targeted, easily labeled, where people didn't really want to get to know me or talk to me. I was bullied for the type of clothes that I wore, and I was also bullied for my weight. So I look back at pictures of myself at 16, 15 years old, and I was actually thinner than I am now. So I look back at those photos, and I think any woman could probably relate to, like, when you look back at pictures of yourself when you're younger and you're like, there was actually nothing wrong with me, but I just believe so heavily in the groupthink, that I was receiving from other people. I got picked on a lot for my weight, because I'm not really a tall girl. I'm only like 5'4", 5'5", but at 12, 13 years old, you're already developing ahead of your peers. You kind of stand out like a sore thumb a little bit too. So I was picked on a lot. I was bullied a lot throughout my middle school, my high school experience. That made me, not really want to reach out or connect with people who were supposed to be in positions of leadership, counsel, who also kind of picked on me and kind of gossiped about me as well. So my adolescent years were very hard, finding community, finding places to fit in. I was also bullied and underestimated a lot as well, because people thought that I was stupid. So I mean, the kids were really, my peers were really cruel to me. Not to be like a victim or anything like that, but my peers were very cruel to me. So they labeled me as being stupid and dumb. I'm never gonna make it. I'm never gonna do anything with my life. And I believed them. I actually started believing the groupthink and, the way that not only my peers, but also some leadership, some teachers were actually treating me. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit of a background, just being heavily bullied, heavily excluded, heavily rejected throughout my middle school and high school years. I didn't really fit in. But let's transition to college. So I went to like not a community college, but I went to a really, really small HBCU when I turned 18. And I actually, because I was believing people, I'm not gonna make it. I'm not gonna do anything positive with my life. I actually started to believe them. So I didn't think that college was an opportunity for me. But God, he opened up a door for me to attend a very, very small HBCU, which is called a historically black college. And I was there only for a couple of months under his grace and his will. So that was like another experience where I thought, okay, coming in, okay, I'll be around people like me, and I'm the type of person where I want friends from all different walks of life, all different backgrounds, have more of like a globally minded mindset. I just want to connect with authentic people, and I love all different cultures. So when I went to the HBCU, it wasn't that I only wanted to box myself in, because I know some people were like, why do you want to box yourself in? It wasn't really that, but I thought that, it would also be a positive experience for me to be able to connect with people, shared heritage and background, because I've been also very excluded from my own community growing up. So I thought that I was going to make like lifelong friendships going to a HBCU. I mean, some of the experiences that I hear about people going to HBCUs, just making like lifelong friendships, like people that were there for them, always a constant for them, finding mentors that really poured into them. I usually hear good experiences about people who go to HBCUs, but I just don't think I was mentally ready. Going away from home for the first time, it happened very, very fast, the way that God opened up this door for me. I didn't really have time to think and say, oh, let me go to a different school or look into a different school. No, it was like, no, this is the door I'm opening up for you. You need to go here. And so that's what I ended up doing, and I wasn't really following God, to be quite honest, all this much at this time in my life. So I ended up going, and it wasn't a positive experience for me. I'm not gonna lie. I did eventually end up transferring out of that university. But I did go in with like really high hopes, that this was going to be a different trajectory for me, meeting people who had similar interests, similar background, just people who were more like-minded. And it just didn't turn out that way. When I went there, again, not to be like a victim or anything, because I've since healed. This was over 6 or 7 years ago. I've moved on, but at that time in my life, being like 20, coming from an area where I wasn't really appreciated, I thought, I was gonna make a sisterhood, lifelong friendships, mentors that would pour into me. And that just wasn't really my experience at 18, 19 years old. It was kind of the same thing. It was kind of like I kind of ran into the same experiences where I went to school for that semester. Very cliquish, kind of like a crabs in a barrel type. So people really didn't like me because they thought, oh, you think you too good and stuff like that. And it was never like that. Nobody really sat down and got to know me, really got to know what I was about. Some of the girls were jealous, which I'm like, why would you be jealous of me? I have nothing. I have absolutely nothing, you would want to be jealous about. But some of the girls were like girls that I thought would be my sister, ended up spreading rumors. Bad experience for me, I'm not gonna lie. So I did transfer out. I took a semester off from college, and God opened up another door for me. So I ended up transferring to a bigger school in a bigger city. So I moved up north to big college, bigger school in a major metropolitan city. So I ended up north. And honestly, this experience changed my life. Given the pandemic and given some other experience that I've had, if you total the amount of time that I was on campus, I was only there for about 8 or 9 months, but it was a good experience for me. I did better at a metropolitan city in a urban environment than I did going to a smaller HBCU down south. It was just totally differently parallel. I was actually starting to meet people. I was starting to meet people. I was starting to break out of my social anxiety. I was just meeting a lot of amazing people in the community. I just met some amazing people. Some of my professors were pretty good, and they weren't necessarily pouring into me in a spiritual aspect, but I mean, I did very well in their courses, and there were so many groups on campus. Like, I was having, honestly, the time of my life, and it was such a positive experience for me. And I mean, despite meeting a lot of people, I didn't really keep in touch with a lot of people. So I didn't really end up keeping in touch with a lot of people because this school had like a career program where people had to do like internships. And so people were always moving around. Like people, they would be on campus one semester, then they would be gone, then they would come back, then they would go to another city to do their internships, then they would come back, you know, so it's very transient environment. So even though I was starting to meet people, I was starting to make I think connections, meeting a lot of interesting and cool people, even classmates. It didn't turn into really any solid friendships because everyone is bouncing around, you know, trying to figure out their careers and, you know, finish their programs. It was a very, very studious environment, the school that I went to. So people were very, very focused, career driven. People traveled, people did different types of internships, very immersive college that I went to. So people were always like moving and shifting around. Like nobody really ever stayed in the city for the whole 4 or 5 years. So I think that that's also another impediment to why I haven't really been able to really connect and make those connections that I think most people would have at this age. A year into my program, the pandemic happened. So they told everybody. I was actually on a study abroad trip, and when I got back, you know, they said, we're going online. So everybody was online for the next 3.5 years. So there's no programs, there's no internships. If you did do your internships, they would be in person. And I think that this was also a really big wedge to being a 26-year-old, not having those connections, is because half of my college experience, where you're building those friendships, you're making those networks, there was a hindrance there due to the pandemic. So for 3 years we were online, and I know some people did do good with those 3 years, you know, meeting friends and stuff like that, but you can't really build a friendship with somebody over a Zoom chat. And then we were still doing our rotations, you know, just because we were online, we still had to, you know, register for different courses every semester. So it's like, okay, that's a very transient experience where 3 years of your life, you know, you're supposed to be meeting people, networking. I'm not really a party person, you know, but if you're going to parties, meeting different people and stuff like that, that experience was totally just ripped at the bottom of our feet. And that's not just for me, that's for anybody else, because I'm sure there's a lot of 2022 graduates that might stumble upon this video, that we did not get our full experience. We did not get our full capacity and element we were supposed to get going to college, going to school, even some high school. If you were in school in any capacity, I don't care if you were doing an MBA, BA, high school, during that pandemic, you missed out on a lot of development. You missed out on a lot of development, a lot of connections, a lot of experiences in those 3 years, as did everyone. But I definitely have to acknowledge that that was like I feel like that's also a major piece where friendships have been very come and go. I haven't been able to really build that foundation for friends. And also, I like to travel. So I've traveled a couple times. I honestly, look at my channel. I definitely would love to travel a lot more. So I haven't, you know, I've been a couple places, but I haven't been everywhere. I've traveled, I've lived there for a couple months. So one time it was an internship. The second time I was teaching abroad, and, you know, I kind of ran through an experience there, you know, where it was like a mean girl experience where I went to when I was teaching and I was traveling the second time. I didn't put it in my videos. I just didn't want to share that part, but just to be transparent, a cliquish kind of mean girl kind of experience that I went into. So of course they didn't take an interest in me, and, you know, really getting to know me for who I was, you know, trying to build like a sisterhood or a friendship or even just some type of camaraderie, you know, just working amongst each other, working together, having this shared experience abroad teaching. They weren't there for that. You know, they wanted to go out to the club and party and gossip and you know, just do a lot of weird stuff that I just wasn't into. Not saying that I'm better than that, but they weren't having that. I just feel like with traveling, it's very, very transient. You know, I've met some amazing people when I've been traveling too, but I just feel like there was really no purpose in keeping touch. People go back to their country eventually. You know, I've met people from Africa, people from Europe, but they go back to their country and then they move on with their lives. They find different jobs. And then the local people you meet, I mean, you can't really help them out, you know, because they're still going to be where they're going to be like 5-10 years from now. So, you know, they mind their business and do what they need to do to get by. I thought that maybe traveling will also open up an opportunity for me to different people, but it's just been very transient where, like I said, eventually, you know, you're going to go home, you're going to go back home, people go back home and they move on with their lives. They find different jobs, they go to different schools. So it's just been very transient where, again, I'm not really building that foundation there for friendships, for companionship, to genuinely get to know people. And this is all God giving me the stream of consciousness right now, because I have like notes, but he's just telling me what to say. Other thing is also career. I thought maybe career would be a good way to, of course, I'm not going to work just for the purpose of making friends or getting to know people, but I thought that career would be an opportunity to meet like-minded people. I'm not going to speak too soon because I'm still very, very new in my career. Still honestly trying to figure out what is it that I really want to do. But I thought that career would be a way to meet like-minded people, people who want to make a difference in the world, people who want to start businesses, who want to make a change. But I realized that you kind of have to be careful in the workplace. You know, you can't always go in bearing your heart and your soul in the workspace, because at the end of the day, people do have their own agendas and motives, and just like me, I'm just there to do the job, get paid, and then go home. So, you know, just being more aware of that, also going into the workspace as well, where I just haven't really had the opportunity. I'm not going to say it's not going to happen for me, because there's still a possibility. But again, as well, careers have been very transient for me. Job has been very transient for 26, you know, at that age where people are building their careers or trying to figure out where they want to do. They're traveling, they're getting married, you know, it's a very developmental, I feel like, stage in life. To not really have that community, it could be very hard sometimes. I've tried online, I've tried, you know, social media when I was younger. I'm not really a social media person. I have Instagram, but I don't post on there like that. I've never really been like a social media type person. I'm not on Facebook. I have my YouTube, and like I said, I'm still very, very new to this YouTube journey on that, but I just don't feel like posting every moment of my life, or even just infrequently. I like having privacy. So I think, like, also being 26 years old, people are all over social media. People, you know, they look at you kind of funny, you know, when you go to networking events and say, hey, my LinkedIn is down, or I'm just not on social media, I don't have an Instagram. They kind of look at you kind of funny, because that's how people in my generation connect. You know, we don't go to a coffee shop and just meet people and get to know people like that. It's like, let me follow up with you on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. And I'm not saying I'm better than social media. I just don't have the capacity for social media, because I don't feel like posting every day. I don't feel like engaging every day. And I'm a private person. I want to choose what I put out there. And I think that's also probably a hindrance, is social media. And my generation is so plugged into social media that when you want to make genuine friends and connections off of social media, they're not here for that. They're not here for that. So I'll just tell you about what I'm trying to do now as a grown 26-year-old with no friends. You mentioned God. So God, Yahweh, he's really been my constant in this journey. It's been a lot of ups and downs. It's not really good on the mental health, if I'm being real with you, especially during the pandemic. Like, that was like, I went through some stuff, and everyone was forced to be isolated during the pandemic. I'm a big believer in God, in Yahweh, Yeshua, Jesus, but however you know him. I'm not gonna lie, you know, and maybe it doesn't really resonate with you, or you're interested. I say it's really religion. I would say it's just having a relationship with God, just talking to him, trying to follow his principles. More importantly, also his Holy Spirit, I feel like he's given me peace in the disappointing experience with friendships. He's carried me. Like, I've gotten this far at 26 years old. So how am I coping without friends as a 26-year-old is, number one, having God in my life. God, Jesus, Yeshua, whoever you know him as in your life, whether if you're a follower or not, like, he's always been there with me. So I think that he helps me out a lot with the isolation, with the loneliness. Number two is, I am trying to get out more. I feel like at this age, still expecting people to come to you, it's not gonna work. You know, it's not like middle school, it's not like high school where you're gonna bond with people just because, okay, we have the same class together. You know, those proximity relationships, or we're gonna bond together, you know, like children, you know, oh, you like pink, I like pink too. You like blue, I like blue too. Adulting, you know, making friendships as adult, I already know it's very, very hard. It's very difficult. It could take years. You know, I've seen people move to new cities and they said it took them 2 or 3 years before they really, really started feeling like, okay, I would consider this as somebody, we could do things together. I could, you know, trust this person, so to speak. And I use that word trust very lightly. I am taking accountability for my actions. I do go to networking events. I'm trying to get out more. I'm trying to, like, even if I'm in a meeting I'm trying to share more of my ideas, you know, so I'm not just living up here. I will admit I might have to be a little bit more active on social media, on LinkedIn or Instagram, you know, just to have that outlet, you know, just so if people want to contact, if they want to connect. I'm not quite at that point yet, but I will maybe eventually get to that point where, you know, I might have like 1 or 2 social media profiles, just so if anyone does want to connect or keep in touch, I will have something, whereas nothing. A lot of meditation, you know, because there's a lot that comes with friendships as well. So when I mentioned, oh, God has really helped me and carried me, realizing it could be a protection. It could definitely be a protection, because I know that friendships come with a lot. They come with a lot of drama, a lot of comparison, competition, and I want to be friends with people who are at the same level as me or more developed. I think a big thing that might help me over the next year is just breaking out of it. I isolated, but I also have social anxiety. So I feel like just making the decision to break out of it will help me a lot, where eventually you just get to that point where you're just like, okay, let me open up a little bit more. You know, have I been a little bit too stiff? Like, sometimes you just have to be honest with yourself. And I think that that's the point that I'm at right now, is where, yeah, you know, everyone's not going to be your friend or connect with you. Or, you know, let me get out of my comfort zone. Let me stop overthinking it. And so that's honestly the point where I'm at right now, is wanting to, even as an adult, even wanting to make adult friendships, is having hope for the future and just making the decision to stop feeling sorry for myself and to break out of it and to be open when those genuine people do come along. I've also just accepted that a lot of people are going to be seasoned in my early career, kind of like young adulthood type stage. So I think also just going in without expectations will also help me, you know, as I start to eventually build those relationships, just not having expectations on people, keeping my discernment up, and then making that decision. Moving to a bigger city. So I live with family right now, and they live in an area that is very quiet. I'll just say that. And, you know, most of the people in this area are settled down in their career, 2.5 kids, and that's just not really where I'm at right now in this season of my life. It's very hard to find other young, even though I know they're here in this area, but it's very, very hard to find other young adults where I'm at. So ideally I would like to move to a bigger city where you could just connect with people from all different interest groups. And I think that living in a bigger city helped me out a lot. So there's more people who are young professionals, young adults, rural, suburban areas, and I'm sure I've seen other testimonies of people saying, like, why are you 30 and you still don't have friends? I think that locality is very big as well. Are you in an area where you can meet people and go out and meet people that share the same experience? Volunteer. I want to get out, but I'm still not really making those connections. So I think for me, moving to a bigger city where there are more young professionals, or young people in general that, you know, are working or doing positive things or just traveling, doing whatever they do, I think that would definitely help me as well. And to share my testimony for a couple years now, because just look it up, just look on YouTube. I have no friends at XYZ age, 30, 25, and just a whole slew of content will pop up. But if you made it this far in the video, I just wanted to let you know that you are not alone. There's so many other people with same or similar experiences as you, whether if it's by choice or not. And I would say just one of the positives of being a very highly excluded, highly rejected individual is that you figure out who's really there for you. God has really been a constant for me. And I have his peace, I have his comfort about it. Sometimes it really does drive me nuts, because, you know, sometimes you just want somebody on your phone, you know, that you could call, you know, invite to coffee, invite to dinner. Heard horror stories. I like to travel alone, but sometimes that's not really a choice. You know, I had to travel alone because my family, they're in different periods of their life, and I don't really have a lot of friends. And I've heard like horror stories of people traveling with friends. Traveling for me wasn't really a choice. It was out of circumstance. So I know people are like, why would you go all the way to XYZ alone by yourself? And it's like, I wanted to go with people, but it was out of circumstance. My family, they do their own thing. I do my thing. So I had to go by myself because I'm just not going to say I'm not going to go. Know that you actually are not alone. There's a whole community of people who are working on themselves, working on their mental health, working on their social anxiety so that they could hopefully attract and get connected to community that will actually build into them. And that's another thing too, is like, I could have compromised. I could have compromised. Like I said, I used to use like social media to try to make friends. I actually did have a Facebook profile at once, but I wasn't attracting the right people. Don't lose hope for yourself. I at this point in time, like I said, I'm not going to give up on different outlets. Even if you just have one good friend, that's all that matters. But it is hard because, I think every person wants that sense of community, wants that sense of friendship, that they can connect with people, that they could plug in, especially more so after the pandemic. And the pandemic affected everyone, even people who more so have a robust social life or social connections. Imagine if you were already a loner or an isolationist or a solo type person. It was even more so emphasized. But I'm just saying, you're not alone. You're not alone, because I used to think I was alone, but after I started seeing these videos come up almost weekly of people saying, I'm 35 years old, I don't have any friends, or I've given up on making friends. I think it's just the times that we're living in, but there are still good, genuine people out there. And even if it's just one person that you could keep in touch with, that's like my new thing. It's like, in the next 5 years, if I just meet one person that I could connect with authentically, I think that's all that really matters. And like I said, I've accepted that my life has been very transient. Traveling is very transient. Someone who likes to move around, like, people are going to be transient. And then also just accepting that people will have their seasons. Shy or soft-spoken. If I want to speak up on something at a meeting, I don't know how that might open up a conversation outside of work, or just talking to people when you go to the store. It will help you with that isolation a little bit. Yeah, you might not be taking them home with you or getting their numbers or anything like that, but it will help, and I think definitely after the pandemic, a lot of people went through it. And just know you have a friend in Christ, and he will help you through your isolation. Because I've been going through this, like I said, for 16 years. This didn't happen during the pandemic. This was before and after the pandemic. Oh, that's also what I was going to say as well, is being like highly excluded and isolated, is you also have more time to work on your goals. So I can't lie, I'm not really exactly 100% where I want to be, but I do feel like I'm a lot further ahead had I had friends, or a big group of friends. I think that not having friends throughout middle school and high school, it kept me out of a lot of trouble. Because I wasn't really appealing. I didn't get invited to parties and stuff like that. So it kept me out of a lot. Let's say I was more appealing, those seasons of my life, I don't know where I would be right now, to be quite honest. So I do feel being highly isolated, highly excluded, there are some benefits to it in being a loner, because it just keeps you out of trouble. It keeps you in your business. That's not to say you shouldn't have community to celebrate your wins with, but I think it's kept me out of a lot of trouble, because I feel like had I had been more appealing, throughout college and high school and stuff like that, I don't know what my life or what type of lifestyle I would have. Not saying I'm better than anyone, but I'm just saying, the more temptation, the more influences, your life will start heading into a different direction. And not having those extra influences has kind of kept me on a straight path, so to speak. But I will say, use this as an advantage. Focus on your goals, focus on your weight loss, focus on starting your business, focus on other things that will help you in your mental health. And also, it might introduce you to people who are also interested in the same things as you as well, by focusing on your goals and really focus on what you want to do and accomplish in your life. Because I do feel like if I did have a lot of friends, especially if they were like the gossipy, oh, I'm gonna hang out with you and then turn my back and not invite you and hang out with, those type of friends, I don't feel like I would have gotten, like I said, I'm not really where I want to be, but I don't think I would have gotten as far as I am right now had I had a bunch of different friends and influences and people speaking into my life and telling me what to do. I've gotten this far where I can be positioned for a different trajectory had I had a lot of friends who were gossips and hanging out in club, because it really is just a distraction at the end. Not saying there isn't a time and space for that, because there definitely is time and a space to get that stuff out. But let's say you don't have that, you don't have a lot of friends and those, you don't have those extra distractions, so you could really just focus 100% on you and your goals and get forward with your life. Had you had friends, you know, who are always inviting you out and you know, asking you to hang out and party and drink and club, like I said, there's a space for that in some people's life. I didn't really go down that path, but it's just distraction at the end of the day. And also look up the story of Shanquilla Robinson. You know, it's very tragic what happened to her, but she befriended the wrong people. She befriended the wrong people who thought they might have had her best interest in mind, but they really didn't. And they took advantage of her, and they did something very, very horrible for her. I pray that those people would get justice. But in the name of friendship, you know, take not having a bunch of friends, being a loner, being excluded, being an outcast from someone who's like, I have a master's degree in that, and being excluded, being an outcast, being unappealing, being, you know, highly rejected, highly excluded, highly disliked. So take it as a blessing, because you could also be in a different circumstance where people are draining your energy, where people are using you, abusing you, using you in spite of you. People might have some things, you know, secretly hidden against you had you had all these friends and all this stuff like that. So there definitely is blessing in not having a lot of friends and being alone. Authentic people, like I said, I'm just believing those right people will come when it's the season for them. But don't get so caught up on it, because people are seasonal anyways. Oh, that's another thing too, is I wanted to say that I've been very guarded, because sometimes I will meet people who are genuine, you know, they're genuine, but, you know, it just takes me a minute to warm up to people, because I've been going through this for so long. It'll take me a couple months to really, really start warming up to somebody, and then they'll, oh, okay, she's cool. You know, maybe I also had some prejudgments about her too, but, you know, I talked to her a couple times and she's cool, you know, so it does take me a minute as well, I think, with this experience to really, really start opening up to people. And they're probably like, oh, is she stuck up? Is she fake? You know, because she's not really opening up to me. It's none of that. It's just that because I've been through some things, it takes me a minute to really warm up to people. But once I do, like, I think it's also a learning experience as well. I don't know what your attachment styles are and what your trauma is, but also give yourself patience as well. I also wanted to add that, because it does take me a minute to get to know people, even though, you know, yeah, there have been some people who are genuine, who are sincere, but because I've been through what I've been through, quote unquote, it'll take me a minute to warm up. But once I do, I do. Enough of my rant. Did get something from this, and if you have, I still hope that, you know, the video did something for you, maybe a new perspective. You don't struggle with making friends, finding people that you can connect with, but, you know, this will be something to keep in mind, you know, when you're connected with new people.